Just a couple nights ago, I was at dinner with my family enjoying a meal when my dad mentioned that they're going to make more Lord of the Rings films. I laughed and said that wasn't likely. After Rings of Power, there's no way someone would do something. I should have foreseen this after Rings of Power was announced. There's no way that was going to be it, right? I mean, I thought the show's result and its reception would have kept anyone else from trying. I should have known better, though. Hollywood this day and age is so predictable. I should have known that they were going to try this. And let me get this straight. I love Lord of the Rings. I've said this in my Rings of Power reviews. I really love this series. I really love the world of Middle-earth. My problem is not even so much that they're making more Lord of the Rings movies. The problem is that there's a lack of unexplored territory for the films to cover. What I mean by this is that there isn't much else for the studios to adapt to film that they haven't already. And I know what you must be thinking if you're familiar with the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. But what about the Silmarillion? I hope I said that right. Or the rest of his works. They haven't done those yet. And you would be right, awesome viewer, that they haven't adapted these works. However, with my extensive research on Google, really being one type, do they have the rights? I found that Warner doesn't have the rights to the Silmarillion or the rest of the works. In fact, no one does. They haven't been sold yet. Tolkien himself sold the film rights to Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, not the rest of his works. So Warner only has the rights to the Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. So unless Warner did something crazy, had some master negotiator salesman here, they don't have the rights to these works, which means we're limited to The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So with that in mind, let's have a little bit of fun and speculate on what these new Lord of the Rings movies could be, shall we? The first is probably what I dread and fear the most, the remake. Redoing the original trilogy of films for this generation, for the modern audience. There are so many reasons why this is a bad idea. First, and the most obvious, this has already been done before. We've already seen The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit in live action before. It doesn't need to be retold in this format. Another reason this is a not so great idea is because of how beloved the original trilogy is. So many people, including myself, love this series, and to do anything that would mess with that is not smart. And you're always going to be compared to that original trilogy. Also, the casting is spot on, so I don't know how you would do that again. I don't know how you could get a perfect cast for the second time. And then lastly, the films still hold up today. They don't need new graphics or effects. They hold up really well, even though they were made a pretty long time ago. I say a long time ago, it hasn't been that long. They don't need to be remade. Simply put, a remake would not be a wise decision. But considering all the money they could make from these, I'm pretty sure that option's still on the table. The second thing they could do is something like what Rings of Power did. Make up a lot of stuff and loosely adapt what happened in the books. Even after the mess we got with Rings of Power, I still think that this can be done well. You just have to make sure you're staying true to Tolkien and his world, what's already been established. You can't reinvent characters that have already been established, that have already been characterized and have gone through arcs. You can't do that again. You can't mess up previously established characters or locations and items. You can't do that either. You gotta make something new that aligns with the old. But knowing Hollywood nowadays, this is way too risky to be a possibility. What the second option would most likely look like is an Aragorn solo film or another story set before Lord of the Rings, which would probably something in the First Age so they aren't associated with Rings of Power, which I would imagine would set place in the First Age just so they're not associated with Rings of Power. I think that could be confusing having two separate Second Age stories going on and most likely not the same actors and actresses. So that could get messy, could get confusing. I think for the viewer, at least, it would be smart not to do similar time periods and stories with separate studios. As bad of an idea as I think more Lord of the Rings movies are, the one spot of good news and the one bright spot is that the people behind it are probably the ones I trust the most with this series. Warner Bros. Produced the original trilogy and has been in talks with Peter Jackson, who was the director of all the Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies. Say what you want about the Hobbit films, but I really enjoyed what Peter Jackson did throughout all the films. It is not known how involved Jackson will be or even if he's involved, but he's been kept up to date. And if he's a part of it, I have way less concerns than I do right now. But still, even with all the people behind it, even if it isn't a remake, I still think it's unwise to make more, especially if they are remakes. I just don't think we need to explore this territory anymore. What we have is already pretty good. Like you've heard before, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I think if you can't tell stories from the Silmarillion, or if you can't access things in the first and second age, then don't waste the time. Don't waste the money. I think this is a bad decision. I don't think it will work out, but only time will tell, and I could very well be wrong, and I really hope I am. But that's about it from me. Let me know down in the comment section below what you think about these new Lord of the Rings movies. Do you think it's going to be a remake? Do you think it's going to be something else? What are your feelings about it? Let me know down in the comment section below. But that's about it for me. And as always, I love you guys. I hope you all have a fantastic day. And until next time, peace out, bro skillets.